They walked out on their children, then claimed I stole them. The custody fight they didn't expect. The call that changed the shape of my 20s didn't come from my mother. It came from the school office asking why Eli hadn't been picked up and whether I could list my number as the primary contact for now. I was 23, halfway through a closing shift, and still thought adulthood meant appliances that matched. By sunset, I was standing between two backpacks, a lost and found jacket, and a secretary who had already guessed the truth. Our mother Diane had left a note on the table 3 days earlier about a short move to California with Walt. A promise to start fresh and find ourselves, and a line that didn't fit in my mouth. Back before summer. The rent was paid through the month. The fridge was hopeful. The calendar on the wall went blank after Wednesday. Like plans fell off a cliff and forgot their shoes that I brought Eli, 10, and Sophie, 6, home to my one-bedroom like a person rescuing animals from a storm and hoping they liked couches. That night, I set alarms for everything I'd never set an alarm for: reading logs, inhalers, the bus that comes earlier on Thursdays. I ate the end piece of bread so they could split the soft ones and told myself this was temporary, like a layover where you hold your breath. On day 6, my mother's new profile found me before she did. A bright square on my phone. Road to Reinvention, Week 1. Sunshine. Smoothie. A caption about shedding old roles and chasing joy. No mention of lunch money or shoe sizes or how Eli processes math best when his pencil is already dull. The algorithm had better aim than our family that I measured temporary in shoelaces and permission slips. I added my name to school forms because signatures don't wait for feelings. Learned which aisle holds the cheapest cereal that still looks like Saturday. And wrote my number on the inside of Sophie's backpack in letters big enough for bus drivers to read. By the end of week 2, the house had a rhythm that didn't ask for permission. When I finally got a text from Diane, it was a photo of a beach and a caption about clarity. I put my phone face down and labeled a manila folder guardianship, informal, because hope is kind, but paper is useful. I started collecting everything that proved a day happened: attendance slips, aftercare forms, prescription refills, tiny receipts for a life I didn't plan to hold and now couldn't imagine dropping. Summer came. They didn't. Temporary, lasted through shoe sizes. I picked up an extra morning shift and kept my closing shift, learned to nap like a cat, and taped a bus schedule to the fridge next to a chart I made for meds and library day. The school nurse added my number under guardian. In practice, because kids don't wait for paperwork to be perfect, I started a second manila folder labeled every proof and fed it like a plant: attendance slips, early dismissal notes, aftercare signouts, the pharmacy sticker from Eli's inhaler. Social services called because schools call when parents stop answering. I told the caseworker the truth without polish. Kids are fed, beds are made. Homework is done at a wobbly table I pulled from a curb. She came by, looked at the charts on the fridge and the fruit bowl with more apples than I could afford, and left me a resource sheet and a line that helped more than any speech. If you keep records, we can keep you steady. I wrote "keep records" on a sticky note and stuck it over the sink where the dishes never stop. The child support portal showed no payments. The mailbox held no checks, only birthday coupons for a couple that posted sunsets for a living. I filed a caretaker affidavit with the school so I could sign for field trips, vaccinations, and lost tooth photos. The principal watched me write my name on the line and said, "You're doing it right." That night, I cried in the shower where the kids couldn't hear water choose sides. That on the same afternoon, I signed the vaccination form. The algorithm offered me Diane's new upload. Letting go of your old story. She talked about breaking cycles while I folded Sophie's uniform and set Eli's science project to dry on the stove because we don't have a table big enough for volcanoes. She said sometimes love means leaving. I paused the video and wrote another sticky. Sometimes love means staying. At tax time, I learned the names of boxes I'd never checked. The clerk helped me list the kids as qualifying dependents with notes about residency and support, and she stapled a copy for my every proof folder. On the way out, she pressed a business card into my palm for a legal clinic that meets on Tuesdays. If they don't come back by summer, she said, you should make the paper match the work. Summer came again. They didn't. The legal clinic met in a church basement that smelled like coffee and old hymnals. A volunteer handed me a clipboard and the kind of pen that makes you write straighter. Intake form. Proof of address. School letters. I opened my every proof folder and watched faces change the way they do when chaos arrives alphabetized. Attendance reports clipped by month. Immunization consents with my signature. A note from the school nurse about Eli's inhaler schedule. Sophie's reading plan with stickers curling at the corners. A law student in a navy sweater listened like it was a skill. He explained temporary guardianship in sentences I could hold. Kids stay where they've been living. You get authority to sign what keeps them safe. Parents can still call. A judge likes tidy timelines. He slid over a checklist and circled the line that matters. Attach proof of ongoing care. I slid the clinic my stack and felt, for the first time in 2 years, like the room wanted me to win. That we filed the petition with dates instead of speeches. The day Diane left. The day the school added my number. The day social services visited. The months of zero support. I added the clerk's tax letter listing both kids as dependents and a log I'd kept of doctor visits. What for? Who drove? How many hours of work I traded for fevers. Court day was a Tuesday that looked like rain and minded its business. The judge had the energy of a person who believes in forms. He read our petition, asked 2 questions I'd answered in the paperwork, then nodded toward the children's file stamped stability in someone's neat block print. The order came down in the time it takes a printer to warm up. Temporary guardianship granted. The clerk slid copies across the counter, and I held them like a passport to the country I'd already been living in. I walked out into the gray afternoon and called the school from the sidewalk. Bring a copy, the secretary said, voice bright. We'll update the system. I sent a photo to the pediatrician's office and felt something unclench in my chest that had been knotted since the first forgotten pickup. Paper had caught up with reality. It felt like a hand at my back instead of a weight on my shoulders. That evening, 3 things happened in the same hour. The kids argued over the blue bowl. I taped the guardianship order inside the every proof folder like a spine, and my phone lit up with Diane's comeback post. Sometimes the bravest thing is returning. We're ready for our family to be whole again. 10 minutes later, a message, pack their bags. We'll pick them up tonight. I looked at the fresh court stamp drying on my copy. I looked at the spaghetti boiling over because Sophie had insisted on extra bubbles. I looked at the chart on the fridge with our lives in marker lines. Love had stayed. Paper had arrived. I texted back exactly what the order said and nothing more. Temporary guardianship granted by court. Kids are safe and staying. Then I put my phone face down and set 2 plates and a small one on the table we'd outgrown, but kept making work. The blue bowl stayed with Sophie, a win we'd decided weeks ago. The door didn't knock that night. The inbox did. The message didn't ask. It warned. Diane wrote that if I didn't return the children immediately, she and Walt would involve counsel and correct the narrative. 10 minutes later, a new post hit her feed with a beach photo and a caption about toxic relatives who kidnap kids under the guise of help. Comments filled with hearts and Mama Bear gifts from people who don't know what a bus schedule looks like. I didn't answer the internet. I built a file. On the kitchen table, I laid everything that proves a day happened. Court order, temporary guardianship, date and judge's stamp bright as a stop sign, school letters, attendance logs, teacher notes. The caretaker affidavit with my signature from last year, medical record printouts, vaccination consents, Eli's inhaler plan. After hours nurse line summaries with my number. Listed, social services visits, the resource sheet with caseworker initials, and the month. They came by. Tax clerk note, both kids listed as dependents under my roof, support. Portal, screenshots of $0 sent for 24 months. I made a new folder called litigation and fed it like a wood stove. Then I opened my phone logs and printed the dullest truth there is. Outgoing calls to Diane unanswered. Voicemails left, texts sent about school concerts, dentist appointments, and a Halloween costume emergency solved with cardboard and glitter. Boring lines. Beautiful evidence. By noon. An email arrived from an associate at a firm with a name that sounds like polished shoes. Demand for return of minors. It accused me of wrongfully assuming guardianship, alienating the children, and creating emotional instability. Attached was their proposed transition plan. Immediate pickup. No school goodbyes, no counselor consult. Cross-country relocation within the week. It read like a moving schedule for furniture, not people. 3:40 p.m. Eli came out of school grinning under a paper ribbon. Perfect attendance, semester 1. He smoothed it flat in the car like a passport. Can we tape it near the chart? He asked. We did, right next to Sophie's reading stars and the note that says Friday equals pancakes. The kitchen wall looked like a courtroom should I sent Mr. Ellis, legal clinic referral. A tidy email with the subject, opposition packet, guardianship in place. I attached scans of everything and one short cover note. They left for 2 years. No support. Court order attached. Kids stable. Need formal response and motion to maintain status quo. He replied with a 3-line blessing I wanted to frame. You've documented beautifully. We'll keep the children where they're safe. That night, Diane posted a story about reclaiming motherhood over a montage of sunsets. I set my phone face down, labeled one more tab correspondence, hole-punched their demand letter, and slid it in. Then I wrote 3 lines on the fridge under Grandma's lemon magnet. Court beats captions. Logs beat speeches. Stability beats nostalgia. When the house went quiet, it wasn't empty. It was prepared that we filed first. Mr. Ellis drafted a motion with a title that sounds dry until you need it. Keep things the same. Inside were the pieces that matter when a judge has 10 minutes and a stack of lives. The court order naming me temporary guardian, a timeline with dates. Not feelings. The day Diane left, the months of $0 support. Each school year rolling forward under my roof. Affidavits, sworn notes. From Eli's homeroom teacher and Sophie's reading aide. Steady attendance, homework and on time. Friendships that look like roots, not tumbleweed. A note from the school psychologist. Kids rely on routines, bus stop, breakfast, bedtime list on the fridge, and sudden removal would harm them. Neighbor statements. The sound of our door at 7:10 a.m., the soccer ball. The way we eat on the steps on hot nights. The pharmacy printout for Eli's inhaler refills with my name on every pickup. We added photos that judges understand at a glance. The chart on the fridge, bus times. Reading stickers, Friday equals pancakes. Eli's attendance ribbon taped beside Sophie's stars. The library receipt with 2 small names and 1 big signature. Mine on the other side. Diane's attorney filed a demand to return the children, packaged like a travel brochure. It promised a new life with ocean views, said social media income would fund tutors and sunshine, framed me as a gatekeeper who blocked reunification. Their exhibits? Clips from Diane's vlog, walks on the beach, healing sunsets, a caption about calling my babies home. Not one school record. Not one doctor's note. Pretty doesn't beat proof. Hearing day 1 felt like an airport for people who don't get to leave. The courtroom was small and serious. The judge read, not scrolled. Diane wore white. Walt wore smug. Their lawyer said words like mother's bond and fresh start. Mine said stability, safety, school, and pushed a card of binders that looked like the opposite of a vlog. When it was my turn, I didn't tell a story. I placed Eli's inhaler plan on the rail, the attendance calendar month by month, and the temporary guardianship order on top like a roof. They live with me, I said. They're doing well. This paper matches our days. My hands didn't shake because the papers didn't. Diane tried to pivot. She held up a vision board, a printed collage of palm trees, a charter school logo, a photo of a kid's bedroom from a catalog. The judge glanced at it the way people glance at a flyer under their wiper. Do you have school records? Medical records? Proof of support? He asked. Diane looked at her lawyer. He reached for plans. The judge reached for our motion and underlined, keep things the same. Walt muttered gatekeeper under his breath. Mr. Ellis slid forward a short letter from the school psychologist. Routines protect anxious kids. Yanking them mid-year is harm, not love. The judge nodded. We'll take testimony next week, he said. But in the meantime, the children stay where the structure is. On the steps outside, Diane launched into a camera half hidden in her bag, whispering about injustice. Walt called me cruel for not letting them heal their brand. I didn't turn. I walked the long way to the car and texted Eli one line he understands better than legal terms. Yes. Pancakes Friday. He sent 3 syrup emojis and a photo of Sophie holding their ribbon. That night we cooked pancakes on a school night because court takes calories. And I taped the judge's minute order, 1 page, 3 lines, next to the fridge chart. Keep things the same. The house exhaled before bed. I slid a new sheet into litigation titled Next Witnesses and made a list. Coach, librarian. The neighbor who waves from his porch at 7:20. People who can say what a stable morning looks like. Courts move slow. Kids grow fast. Paper is how you stop one from bulldozing the other. The second hearing didn't start with speeches. It started with a bell schedule. Eli's homeroom teacher took the stand and described our mornings like she'd been standing in my kitchen. 7:10 porch light off. 7:20 bus stop wave. 7:50 first bell. Eli in his seat with his pencil already dull because he works better that way. She held up his attendance calendar and a stack of math sheets with the same neat name in the corner every time. Mine, the reading aid for Sophie, went next. She brought the sticker chart I'd taped so many times the edges looked like fabric. Consistency is everything, she said. She decodes better on Pancake Fridays. The courtroom smiled and then remembered it wasn't supposed to. Paperclips tapped. Pens wrote it down. Our school psychologist didn't bring poetry. She brought routines. The bedtime list on the fridge, the inhaler set out by the cereal bowl, the bus driver who knows which jokes calm which kid. Sudden relocation mid-year is destabilizing, she said, especially for a child with asthma who does best when his morning looks exactly the same, down to the bowl he prefers. She looked at the judge, not at Diane. Moving them now isn't reunification. It's disruption. Then it was my turn, and I didn't try to be moving. I was specific. I set Eli's inhaler plan on the rail, pointed to the dosage time we follow, and said the quiet part plainly. Someone has to be standing in the kitchen at 6:30, so the dose is in before the bus. The room went still, and that way only true sentences can make it. The judge wrote something, underlined it, and kept listening. Diane's lawyer tried to change the channel. He played clips from Diane's vlog on a tablet held up like a lantern. Ocean, sunrise, a smiling speech about family healing. The judge glanced once, then asked, "Do you have school records? Doctor notes? Anything that shows you've woken them, fed them, signed them in, sat in the waiting room?" Silence stretched. A gull cried in the video. No one in the room moved. Walt presented their transition plan, a page with arrows pointing to a new state and boxes marked charter school and new therapist. Mr. Ellis slid over a copy of our temporary guardianship order and the judge's own minute order from last week that said keep things the same. Plans are not care, he said. Care is a morning done right, 10 months in a row. The judge leaned back, looked at all of us, and spoke like a person balancing a tray. Pending final hearing, the children remain with their temporary guardian. No relocation. No unsupervised contact outside this county. Any visits will be scheduled, short, and supervised by a neutral at the family center. No filming. No posting. He looked at Diane when he said the last two words. No posting. Walt whispered, unbelievable, under his breath. Diane's jaw tightened like a fist. The bailiff handed me the fresh order while the printer was still warm. I slid it into litigation and felt the folder sit heavier in my hands in the right way, like a seatbelt. Outside, in the hallway where the vending machine hums, our neighbor from across the street waited on a bench in his work boots. He'd taken an early lunch to be there. "You forgot to call me," he said, pretending to be offended. "But I came anyway just in case." He told the clerk what mornings look like on our block, my porch light, the soccer ball, the wave. She added his note to the file. Not fancy, solid. That night, we did pancakes on a Tuesday because that's what a win tasted like to 3 people and 1 wheezy cat. I taped the new no posting line right under the pancake line on the fridge, not because the kids needed to read it, but because I did. It meant someone else finally spoke the boundary I'd been living. Before bed, I packed a bag for supervised visits the court allowed, snacks, a notebook, a small game the kids like when rooms feel formal. If their mother could hold it together and show up, they would see her. If she couldn't, they would still go home to the same chart, the same door, the same blue bowl. Courts don't fix families. They fix schedules and safety. Sometimes that's enough to hold until the heart catches up. The family center looked like a dentist's office that learned how to be kind. Lamps instead of fluorescent lights, a bookshelf with puzzles missing only one piece, a clock that ticked loud enough to keep everyone honest. A staffer named Ruth explained the rules gently the way flight attendants point to exits. No filming, no phones, neutral toys, eyes on the children, not on the past. She handed me a laminated card that said return to desk if you need support, like it was perfectly normal to need support in a room full of blocks. Eli chose the table near the window because he likes to see the sky when he's thinking. Sophie found the dollhouse, opened every tiny door, and lined the furniture against an imaginary wall. I kept my bag at my feet, snacks, the notebook, the small game we use when rooms get formal, and stared at the clock until I could breathe in rhythm with it. Diane arrived 5 minutes late with a smile that looked like a photo. She paused at the threshold the way people do when they hope an entrance can fix the scene. Ruth intercepted her the way a good goalie does. "No devices," she said. Diane tried to explain the phone was just for memories. Ruth pointed to the sign, "No filming, no posting." Diane put the phone in a locker with a little key that made a clicking sound louder than it should have. For a while the hour tried to be gentle. Diane asked Eli about school, and he told her about the class pet and how the hamster is really a gerbil and the difference matters. She nodded in the wrong places. Sophie brought a plastic plate of toy cookies and Diane pretended to eat one, then looked toward the locker like she'd swallowed the wrong thing. When Diane reached for Eli's collar to smooth a crease the way she used to, he flinched small and then froze because he didn't want the room to think anyone was in trouble. Halfway in, the old reflex broke through the new rule. Diane said, too brightly, "Let's do a picture for Nana. She misses you," and stood too fast. Ruth was there before the sentence hit the rug. "No photos," she repeated, calm as gravity. Diane's arms lowered. Something in her face buckled and then restitched into a smile. "Of course," she said. "We'll remember with our hearts." Eli studied the clock like it was a map. He put down the hamster story mid-sentence and asked without drama, "Why did you go?" The question wasn't a spear. It was a door he wanted to test. Sophie moved closer to my knee and hooked too. Fingers into my jeans the way she does when she wants to be anchored without anyone making a big deal of it. Diane reached for a sentence with soft edges. "I had to find a better version of me," she said, "so I could be a better mom." Eli thought about that like a scientist. "Did the better you know we needed breakfast?" he asked. "Not mean. Exact." Diane blinked, and for a second the room showed us who was actually parenting. The one who knew the bus came earlier on Thursdays and that the blue bowl had to be cleaned by 7. Ruth glanced at me to make sure I was steady. I nodded. "We let the kids steer." Sophie handed Diane a doll with a tiny backpack and said, "She goes to school every day." Diane said, "That's good," and looked at me like I might somehow translate the toy into forgiveness. When the clock ticked to 5 minutes left, Ruth gave the universal time's up wave. Diane stood too quickly again and said, "Next time we'll go for ice cream after." And Ruth, gentle, kind, immovable, reminded her visits stay on site until the judge changes the paper. Diane swallowed the word after and packed it back behind her teeth. We walked to the desk together because that's how centers end hours that feel longer than they are. Eli high-fived Ruth because he high-fives everyone who holds a boundary calmly. Sophie put the doll back in the tiny bed and whispered good night to no one. Diane signed the form the way you sign for a package that doesn't fit through your door. In the parking lot, she tried to reroute the hour with a text that landed like a hand knocking on a window after the shop is closed. "I deserve another chance. Stop punishing me. We can co-parent if you'd stop being difficult." I didn't answer with a paragraph that would grow teeth while I slept. I sent the only thing I live by now, 4 rules in one message. All contact in writing. No filming, no posting, ever. Kids' routines are not negotiable. Court orders first, feelings second. Then I forwarded the text to correspondence and wrote the 4 rules on the first page of the notebook in my bag. Because rooms with clocks aren't the only places where people forget how time works. At home, we did the ritual that keeps the air smooth. Shoes by the mat, hands washed, snack in the blue bowl, Eli's inhaler on the counter where the light hits it at 6:30. Sophie asked if the doll slept okay at the center. I said yes. She nodded, satisfied, and colored 3 more stars on her chart because she decided she'd earned them. I didn't argue. Before bed, I added 1 line to the fridge under Grandma's lemon magnet, right under the judge's no posting rule. Rules that hold are love that lasts. The house agreed by staying exactly itself. Her email stamped 12:14 a.m. Like a bad habit. "Let's skip court," Diane wrote. "Give me a week in California to reconnect. No lawyers. No center. Just trust." She framed it like a peace offering and tucked a demand inside. A week that would cut across school, sleep, and Eli's quiet morning with the 6:30 inhaler. She called it healing. The hour called it disruption. I didn't negotiate with the dark. I replied at 8:02 a.m. with sunlight and paper. Court orders control visits. On-site only. No travel. No exceptions. Please schedule through the family center. 4 lines. No adjectives. I CC'd Ruth and Mr. Ellis, then printed the thread and slid it into correspondence while the toner was still warmed at T917. My phone buzzed with the kind of post you can hear even with the sound off. Diane uploaded a story, a photo of 2 small shoes by a beach door and a caption. Some people keep children from the ocean. No names, just the shape of me drawn with salt. 10 minutes later, the family center called. Ruth's voice stayed calm, but the words had edges. We saw the post, she said. The order says no posting. We'll need Diane in for a compliance meeting before the next visit. I thanked her and wrote compliance. No posting in my notebook under the 4 rules. I sent a quiet note to Diane. Center has requested a meeting due to your post. Future posts about the children, direct or implied, violate the order. She replied with 3 paragraphs about free speech and my truth. I forwarded them to correspondence and went back to packing Sophie's snack, the blue lid that doesn't leak, the apple she likes with the stripe peeled off. At the compliance meeting, Ruth laid out a sheet with boxes that only needed check marks. No phones, no filming, no references online. Visits stay on site. Schedules are set by the center. Diane signed the way people sign returns they don't agree with. This is censorship, she said softly. Ruth didn't argue. She pointed to the clock on the wall. This is time, she said. You can use it to connect or to fight the rules. You don't get both. The next visit started stiff, but better. Diane kept her eyes on Eli and Sophie, not on the locker. She asked about the hamster, and this time she listened long enough to learn it is a gerbil, and that gerbils get nervous when you change their bedding too fast. Sophie served pretend tea and explained that we don't do sugar after 7 o'clock because sleep is a team sport. Diane nodded and, small miracle, didn't glance at the clock to see if the hour was almost over. Then the slip. As we checked out, Diane asked Ruth if she could take just 1 photo of their hands, because hands are not faces. And Ruth shook her head once, kind and firm. No posting, she repeated. Even a hint invites attention. The order protects them from attention. That night the post appeared anyway. 2 hands in silhouette, captioned, "Hold on. We're coming home." Ruth emailed the link 30 minutes later with the line, "This puts visits at risk." I stared at the silhouettes until they looked like strangers that I didn't call Diane. I wrote the sentence that has saved more days than any speech. Please follow the order. Then I set my phone face down and did the things that keep our house true. Washed the blue bowl. Laid out the inhaler by the cereal. Put Sophie's socks in a pair so mornings don't turn into scavenger hunts at dawn. An email from Mr. Ellis landed. The judge had seen the post and added a note to the docket. No social media references. Further violations risk suspension of visits. He attached a 1-page reminder for Diane to sign. The order got heavier in the right way. The boundary grew bones. Eli ate breakfast with his ribbon still taped to the wall, asked if gerbils like thunderstorms, and packed his folder. Sophie demanded 3 braids and then 2 and then decided on 1 because consistency isn't just for inhalers. It's how 6-year-olds tell you they want the world to stop rocking. Before school, I added a new line under Grandma's lemon magnet. Midnight asks get morning answers. No posts. Paper only. The door clicked behind us. The house kept our place. The center scheduled a compliance visit. 1 hour, 1 room, 1 more chance. Ruth reviewed the checklist at the door like a liturgy. No phones, no filming, no posts, on-site only. Diane nodded. Her smile wobbled, but her pen stayed on the line. We were almost inside when a new variable arrived. Walt. Rolling a cart bag like a salesman at a conference, he had boxes, branded sneakers a size too big, a tablet still in plastic, a stuffed whale with a tag that said California, like geography, could be wrapped. Just a little something, he said, aiming past Ruth at Eli and Sophie. Ruth didn't raise her voice. She pointed to the sign that has saved more families than any lecture. No gifts without prior approval. Walt laughed like rules are punchlines. You can approve them now, he said, and flicked open a box lid so the sneakers flashed like a lure. The kids looked at me, not the shoes. I looked at Ruth. Not today, she said, steady as a metronome. Walt's jaw set into the shape of a storm. He leaned close enough that I could smell cologne and a kind of hunger. "You're making enemies," he whispered. I didn't whisper back. I pointed to the white paper clipped to my folder. The judge's note about no posting and risk of suspension for violations. "I'm making a record," I said. Inside the room, the hour tried to be kind. Diane read Sophie a book about a gerbil who learns to like thunder. Eli sorted puzzle pieces by edge and color because order is how he breathes. Diane's eyes kept sliding toward the door where the bag of little somethings waited like a chorus. At minute 40, Walt reappeared in the doorway with a phone angled low, like a fisherman testing a line. Ruth moved faster than anyone that calm should move. "Phone in the locker," she said, palm open. "Or this visit ends now." Walt called it evidence for the lawyer. Ruth called it not optional. The phone entered the locker to the same small click that means a rule just grew bones. With 5 minutes left, Diane asked if she could walk them to the parking lot to say goodbye. Ruth shook her head. "On-site only." Walt muttered something about cages. Eli looked at the clock and then at the stuffed whale peeking from the bag. He reached for Sophie's hand instead and said, "We have pancakes tomorrow." Diane flinched like the word tomorrow had picked a side. Checkout was a form and a pen and an hour that made sense on paper even if it didn't in hearts. At the desk, Ruth pushed a behavior memo across for Diane to sign. No gifts, no phones, no posts, with a highlighted line. "Further violations may result in suspension of visitation pending review." Diane signed, eyes shiny and hard. Walt didn't. "I don't sign trash," he said. Ruth noted refused to sign in neat print and initialed the refusal. "Paper doesn't take offense. It takes notes." I in the parking lot. The cart bag rolled beside us like a third person demanding attention. Walt tried the end run. "They can take the gifts home." What kind of monster says no to kids? I set the bag handle upright and let go so it stood like a stop sign. "Gifts with strings are not gifts," I said. "The court isn't a registry." He reached for the handle. Ruth's shadow cut across the asphalt. "This conversation is over," she said at home. "We did the ritual that keeps the earth level, shoes by the mat. Hands washed, Eli's inhaler at 6:30. Sophie's chart stars colored in while she narrated each stroke like a news anchor. I emailed Mr. Ellis a summary while the pasta boiled. Attempted gifts, phone violation, refusal to sign, sent her memo attached. He replied in 5 sentences that landed like sandbags. "Good documentation. We'll move to formalize supervised visits only." And ask for a standing order against gifts/phones/posts with sanctions. At 9:11 p.m., Diane sent a message that read like a truce made of smoke. "We just want to love them. Stop making this so legal." I answered with the only line that lets tomorrow look like tomorrow. "Love is keeping the rules that keep them steady." Then I added the center's memo to litigation, taped a pancake note to the fridge for the morning, and set out Sophie's socks in a matching pair so no one had to hunt for anything at sunrise. The house held our place the way a thumb holds a page when the story gets loud. Courtrooms don't clap, they decide. The family center filed its violation memo, the phone, the nearpost, the gift bag with strings, and Mr. Ellis laid our timeline of steadiness beside it, school logs, the inhaler plan, the fridge chart with Friday equals pancakes. The judge read like a person packing a suitcase he intends to carry himself. When he looked up, the room got the kind of quiet that means a door is about to close. "Custody remains with the temporary guardian, now converted to ongoing guardianship," he said. "All contact, supervised at the family center. No phones, no filming, no posting. No gifts without prior approval. No out-of-county travel. Review in 12 months. Or earlier if the adults show consistent rule following and child-centered behavior." He signed the order. Ink met paper. The argument ran out of places to stand. Walt tried a last glare that bounced off the blue seal. Diane's face folded in on itself, then smoothed like a bedsheet. I didn't gloat. I asked the clerk for 3 certified copies, thanked the bailiff for their patience, and walked out with a folder that felt like a railing you can grip on stairs that used to be slick. At home. We put our lives exactly where they belonged. Eli taped his attendance ribbon a little straighter. Sophie added a star she'd saved in her pocket for when the judge likes pancakes. I slid 1 certified copy into the safe, 1 into the school file, and 1 under the magnet on the fridge where we keep the rules that work, all contact in writing. No posts. Routines first. The house breathed out and made room for dinner. That night, I sent 1 calm email to the whole family list. The court kept the kids' schedule. Visits are supervised and by the rules. Do not bring gifts or phones. Do not post or hint online. If you need to reach me, write. No speeches. Just the shape of our days, signed and dated. I didn't win a fight. I kept a childhood. And the people who love these kids now know which door to use and how softly it closes behind them. Thank you for watching this story on True Tales Hub. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story. That we post new tales twice a day, and each one comes with unexpected twists you won't see coming.